Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be able to sharing our understanding of the this topic. To sharing this topic in this event, because we all know that ChatGPT AIGC become very popular. However, maybe 1 year or half year ago, Metaverse is another very popular topic. So in this sharing session, I will sharing with you how we implement, develop our Metaverse services in China, and what relationship from our perspective between Metaverse and AI, and also what is happening in Chinese market in terms of Metaverse, because we see there are some differences between Chinese Metaverse market versus global market. Yeah. So I'm the leading partner of Deloitte China Metaverse Center for Excellence. Prior to this role, I've actually conducting corporate strategy and digital transformation for more than 10 years. So this gives me a little bit advantage to understand how technology can change the world, can make the innovation. So that's relatively easier for me to understand that those so-called Metaverse technology can have impact on business, because the fact is that there is no specific Metaverse technology. Metaverse, this is umbrella name, is also actually composed of different technologies that have already been existing relatively long time before the terminology of Metaverse became popular in the world. So in the lower corner of this picture, I show 3 IDs in the internet world. So the left is a Web 2 ID, is actually my WeChat ID. And in the middle part of the lower right corner is actually my avatar in the Decentraland, the famous Metaverse platform. And the last one is my avatar in Xirang platform, developed by the Baidu internet company in China. So that's my 2 avatars and 1 ID from the Web 2 world. So the first part I'm going to share in the Deloitte China Metaverse service. It's not a simple introduction of our service. It's more like introduce how we define and how we think the Metaverse business will going forward. And based on this understanding, we define and develop our strategy. We develop a brand name for our Metaverse business. We call it Qingqiong. Qingqiong, the pronunciation is actually the same as the name of Chinese famous military general from Tang Dynasty. So this gives our a little bit advantage to make people easier to remember our name. And its meaning is a great Metaverse space of Deloitte. So this brand name is actually developed by our colleagues. And this page shows how we think Metaverse will evolving in the long term. As most of you know, that there is no standard definition of Metaverse in the world. Some people think Metaverse consists of 7 layers, and most people think Metaverse is actually a converged world, combining physical world and the virtual world. Based on this understanding, we made a step further. We think the virtual world will include 2 parts. One is a virtual mirror world, another is a virtual native world. Why we divided the virtual world in these two parts? Because we think this is easier for us, for people to understand how those virtual worlds will impact us. So by its definition, Virtual mirror world is the replicating of the physical world. No matter how complicated the process is, and no matter how big the scale is, because I think you know that some company have been replicating the Earth into the virtual world, and some company is replicating a city, a town, a house, or maybe a product into the virtual world. No matter how big the size it is, the logic in this virtual mirror world is exactly the same as the physical world. So this makes us easier to anticipate what's going to happen, because we can simply think of the virtual mirror world as an extension of the physical world, just in a different format. So it makes us easier to anticipate its trends. However, we found another type of virtual world. We call it a virtual native world. The motivation of virtual native world is actually different from the virtual mirror world. Virtual native world is actually developed by some people who think the current physical world are not that satisfying, so they want to change it to some extent. For example, they will create a different format by using those 3D engine software, and they want to run this world in a different roles, such as DAO, such as cryptocurrency, and also in the virtual native world, there are some more powerful AI is driving this world. So that's why we define, and that's the way we think metaverse will be evolving in long term. So next page, we explain this in a more specific way. So we think no matter that's a virtual world or a physical world, a world is consisting of three factors, three dimensions. One is format, another is rules. Rules means how people's behavior is controlled, how people make trading, how the government manages their entities, such as law, safety, taxes, something like this. And in the middle part of this picture, and in the middle part of the world, is intelligence. That could be the human being's intelligence or AS intelligence. So in the physical world, we are in the format of physical world, and we have the rules and human being's intelligence. In the virtual mirror world, the only difference is from the physical world is the format. All other are the same. However, in the virtual native world, we have to face in three different things. One is that a different 3D formats. Another is a Web3 based rules. For example, those cryptocurrency, those DAO, and those smart contract rules. And also we will facing and have to deal with a more powerful AI-driven intelligence. And to some extent, I think all of you have already know that to some extent, the AI's power have already passed, go beyond the people's capability. And sooner or later, a lot of aspects of humans' capability will be passed, go beyond by AI. Then how we will deal with that? That's a question for us. And the next, this picture shows from the metaverse perspective, what the world in future will look like. So we think a world, no matter it's a virtual or physical world, consisting of 8 systems. In the middle part of the bottom, that's environment. It could be a natural environment, a residential environment, or our working environment in either virtual way or physical way. And above that is a human being, or maybe AI, or maybe our avatar. And when people organize different entities or institutions like the community, school, enterprises, and the governments, and then those organizations began to manufacture some stuff. So by using XR technology plus digital twins, we can stimulate the production process, and we can stimulate manufacturing. After products is produced, the end users, the consumers, come to buy and consume that. And there are some digital asset, and there are some transactions. And those virtual transactions will be supported by the economic system. It's either the current economic system, like the currency of RMB or currency of US dollars or European currency, or it could be supported by the virtual economic system, like those Web3 economic system, those cryptocurrency, and those smart contract, and those decentralized stock exchange platforms. And after that, people will have different civilization. We call it a metaverse civilization because when people entering a virtual world, their behavior will be changed. As you can see from some of languages used by those Web3 native people, they tend to use a little bit different language and costumes. And in the future, we think those culture will become more different from our existing one. And the last, but not at the least, is the governance model. So that means how those virtual world will be governed and how the law, tax, compliance process, regulations will be implemented. So this is actually a new topic for us, and we notice that in US or in China, and more governments have been realized the importance of these governance issues and try to develop and implement some rules to manage those virtual world. So that's an outlook of the metaverse in future. And no matter that's a governance model or consumer or manufacturing metaverse scenarios, anyway, by the end of the day, all of those metaverse scenarios is actually based on some technology. So we divided and identified 4 layers that support those metaverse industry. The first layer is access. People get access to the virtual world through different devices, VR, AR, BCI, or maybe mobile or PC. And in the application layer, we divided it into 3 big scenarios, like consumer scenarios, industry scenarios, and governance scenarios. This is actually based on our understanding and the forecasting of how metaverse is going to be evolving in future. And below that, the core part of metaverse industry, that's a technology platform, including digital twins, game engines, and blockchain, and also AI engine is part of the technology platform by our definition in terms of the metaverse. And below that is a technology infrastructure. Actually, most changes and innovations in terms of technology is actually happening in the first 3 layers, because we noticed that there are some companies entering this AR VR market and try to gain some benefits, and some companies are focusing on the developing those applications, and some companies is building some 3D engines in China. That's their market position. So based on our understanding of the metaverse market, we define our metaverse strategy. We are providing full services to the clients, including enterprises and the government. And we divided our scenarios into 3 main scenarios, as I explained before. That's industrial scenarios such as manufacturing and product design, and the custom consumer scenarios like the automotive, consumer, and custom package and the retailer industry, and also tourism industry, something like this industry. And above that is the governance scenarios. And we think the government need to play a critical roles in developing those rules in the metaverse, in the virtual world. And we Deloitte can help them to develop those solutions. But we are in process of this because there is no full set of governance model in the metaverse virtual world so far, no matter that's in US or in China, because that's a very new. Metaverse itself is still emerging. Yeah, so this is our strategy of metaverse strategy. And we actually developed many white papers over the past year. And the first is Metaverse overview, and we also get this version translated into English version. And maybe some of you have took a look at this. And I think by using EIGC, it's much more powerful, and maybe we can very quickly to have those the white papers translated and issued for people to understand our thinking and our insights into this industry. And this page is an example that we delivered for our customers. Over the past years, we actually completed 4 types of project. One is that we develop Metaverse strategy planning for client. So this page is an example. We develop market analysis and Metaverse strategy planning for an automotive client, a global brand. And this picture shows that along the customer journey in the market and the sales area, how we use the different modules of Metaverse to improve the customer experiences. So this is a scenario example. And the second type of Metaverse project we've done is implement those marketing Metaverse platform design. So we've actually achieved some quantitative result by using Metaverse technology. And the third type of projects we've done in China is to develop an Metaverse experiences and innovation center. This is actually we did for Deloitte ourselves, and we will launch those Metaverse experiences and innovation center by the end of this April, and we will make an internal pilot and formally launch the center to the public, to our client in next month. So those are what we've done in terms of projects. And the first types of project we've done is the analysis and the forecast of Chinese Metaverse policy. Because some MNC, some overseas company, when they trying to extend their business or when they plan to enter the Metaverse business, they want to know what's Chinese government attitude or industry regulation could be towards a Metaverse, especially towards those virtual world management. So we've done another type of project, and also the client as a global media company. So this part, I briefly introduce Deloitte Chinese Metaverse service. And the next time I'm introducing what a Metaverse market looks like currently in China, and also some analysis of Chinese Metaverse platform and global Metaverse platform in terms of how they make successful and why they are not operating very well. So this page slides showing the overall investment of global investors in the Metaverse on the left side. I think most of you have already realized the investment on Metaverse is dropped a lot since last year. And from this number, actually, we can see the capital market is very sensitive to the potential trends of technology innovation, because we know that a lot of investment has actually shifted into the ChatGPT-driven AIGC areas recently. However, in China, the Metaverse market show a little bit different trends. First, we forecast the Metaverse market size will be reaching 40 trillion RMB by 2030. And the Metaverse development market set up by Shanghai, the city Shanghai, is about 350 billion RMB by 2025. And we know some provinces in China, particularly those provinces have a good tourism resources. they are trying to build some metaverse world to attract more ending users. And we also noticed that recently the attention to the metaverse still keep growing. For example, we checked the investment deals. The amount of investment deals in Q3 last year has actually raised up by 125% compared with Q2. And in the right side of this slide, we give two examples of how big the metaverse investment project is. One example is the investment made by Chengdu. That's a southwestern part of China. They made an investment plan of 5 billion RMB to build a metaverse industrial park. And another investment made is by a company, BOE. BOE is a manufacturer of LED and the part of the PC or part of mobile and the screen part of those devices. And they make an announcement last year that they will invest 29 billion RMB to build a new VR production line. So that's some examples that how big the metaverse market is in China. Second, I was sharing with you of the policy, the attitude of governments towards metaverse. We can see the overall attitude of the Chinese government towards metaverse is very supportive because we realize that two reasons is behind the government attitude. One is that in China, metaverse is actually including a lot of different digital technology. It's not only XR. In China, particularly from government perspective, they define metaverse in a much broader sense. It includes XR, includes data, big data, includes AI, includes blockchain. So because Chinese government is very heavily promoting the technology innovation, so they think metaverse as a good way, as a good brand name to promote those technology innovation. So this is one reason. Another reason why Chinese government is very supportive of metaverse, because some metaverse scenarios, like we defined, the consumer metaverse scenarios, will be able to create some new business models to attract a lot of ending users to use that, to experience that. For example, to build a virtual city or to build a virtual mount to attract more travelers. So this will increase consumption and will increase the GDP. So that's also important for Chinese economic development. So that's two reasons we think why Chinese government in general is very supportive of metaverse. And we noticed that there are already more than 30 provinces have issued their policy towards metaverse. Either that's a metaverse industrial park or that was the policy to promote the metaverse industry development. Another set of metaverse policy is the Chinese government is strictly prohibiting the usage of cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is illegal in mainland part of China because we think Chinese government don't want to lose control for their financial infrastructure, because as we know that actually if you made some trading by using cryptocurrency, actually no one know who is this behind those ideas. That's one future of Web3. However, they also bring a lot of risk to the government. So that's, I think, also the reason why recently U.S. government is implementing more stricter rules to control those cryptocurrency stuff. And the third thing is that even though the cryptocurrency is not allowed, is strictly prohibited in mainland part of China. Hong Kong is actually very open and is allowed to do the cryptocurrency businesses. And in last November, Hong Kong make an announcement they will heavily promote the virtual assets trading and build some virtual assets trading platform. And cryptocurrency is also allowed in Hong Kong's market. And they already have several big events in Hong Kong organized by the government to promote and attract people from around the world to come to Hong Kong to build together of the Web3 or virtual assets market. Yeah, so that's basically the outlook of Chinese policy towards metaverse in 3 different ways: supportive to the technology innovation, prohibiting the cryptocurrency in mainland part of China, and also keep an open attitude towards the cryptocurrency by make some pilot in Hong Kong market. So our estimation is that in mainland part of China, even in the long term, the chance to open the market to cryptocurrency is very small. However, some other model developed by using Web3 technology, such as a smart contract, such as a decentralized identification systems, is highly likely will be applied in Chinese mainland part of market. So that's policy. And in terms of players, and I think that's similar as what happened in global and in US market. Those big internet companies are actually the main players in this market that be able to build a big metaverse platform. And along the 4 layers we defined about metaverse industry, we found that all of those big internet companies in China have already put their capability or developed their capability in different layers, such as access, business application, technology platform, and infrastructure. Some of those capabilities are not particularly built for metaverse, such as AI, such as cloud, such as IoT, because no matter whether or not there's metaverse applications, they will build this capability. Meanwhile, they also built some dedicated resources and capabilities in the access layer and the business application, such as Baidu has developed their Xirang platform. That's a very dedicated metaverse platform. It's something like a decentralized platform, but it's a little different from the Horizon. Because Horizon, we think is more like a social metaverse platform. However, the metaverse platform built by Baidu is more like the decentralized, and the different companies can open their booths in those metaverse platform and attract end users. It's more like a real world. And recently, we see 2 drops of metaverse business by Tencent. One is that in last Q3, Tencent has canceled their NFT platform. They stopped NFT platform because there was ever a time window in Chinese market. There is no very clear rules about how NFT business will be implemented. So some platform has opened the market to do the secondary trading of NFT. This generated a lot of usage of the NFT, and some small company has actually made some money. However, because this is not liked, this is not a favorite model by Chinese government, so we think the reason Tencent has stopped their NFT business because those big internet companies, they need to follow the rules strictly, and they need to gain the trust from the government. Because recently, it's actually not near recently, it's maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there were already a trend that in China, those big internet companies was considered not that technology innovation, but didn't earn a lot of money from end users. This is something the government doesn't like. So that's we think why Tencent has stopped their NFT platform. And also recently, Tencent has canceled their VR XR devices business and very focusing on their software. We think there are two reasons. One is that the Apple made an announcement that they will launch their XR devices and using the open operating system. So Tencent maybe think they're not very necessary for Tencent itself to build hardware and software by their own. They can use the hardware devices developed by Apple, but using Tencent's software. It makes easier for Tencent to build their ecosystem. And the second reason we think is that actually Tencent doesn't have a DNA of developing hardware. So I think we think that that's two reasons why Tencent has stopped their XR devices. And the ByteDance is another source also play a big role in Metaverse market because ByteDance has acquired XR devices manufacturer Pico last year and make a big investment in Metaverse. And it's said that ByteDance not only developing those hardware markets by acquiring Pico, ByteDance also developing some 3D engines in order to play a more important role in the Metaverse world. Because there's a lot of Metaverse applications, but Metaverse application, the technology of a Metaverse application is actually not that critical. The more critical part of Metaverse industry in terms of the technology is actually the 3D engine. So that's why ByteDance have made some investment to build a 3D engine by their own. So this is a general landscape of big players of a Metaverse platform in China. So this page, after we noticed that Tencent have stopped their NFT and Baidu has developed their own Metaverse platform, we made analysis of global Metaverse platforms, including platforms from US and also platforms developed by China. The representative platform is actually developed by Baidu. And we identified 6 key successful factors that contribute to the success of Metaverse platform. And from this picture, we can actually see more clearly that why Horizon is not that successful. So from the left, lower left side, we can see the first factor is experiences. Whether or not the platform can provide a 3D dimension based experiences, and whether or not that's high resolution. So in this dimension, Horizon World is actually doing very well because their customers, their end users can only access their platform by using VR at the very beginning. So that we think is a motivation behind Horizon because they think the 3D dimension experiences is very important to the customer. However, the experiences is not only one. And the second part is the economic system. That means whether or not, the ending users of Metaverse platform can buy and trade their virtual asset in this platform. And whether or not they can buy and trade their virtual assets, even though this platform have been removed, they can still hold the ownership of those virtual assets and trading in another platform. So this is actually how decentralized the sandbox and OpenSea platforms have been implemented together, because the ending user can develop their own virtual assets. It's either a art or a house or maybe some even music, and store this virtual asset in the OpenSea market and trading in the OpenSea market. But certainly they can also trade those virtual assets within their own platform. So that means even though someday the decentralized, for example, the decentralized has stopped, but the ending user, but the users of decentralized can also still own their virtual asset developed within decentralized and to trade those virtual assets in OpenSea. So this give users very big flexibility and benefits. So that's we think important factor to contribute to the success of our platform. So we call it economic system. And the third one is UGC. UGC means user generation contents. Why we think UGC is important? Because in the real world, in our physical world, people come to this world and we create many different stuff by using different tools. That's the real format of a world. So in virtual world, we think this is also important to give the users the flexibility to create something by their own. So the user is not only the user, but also creator, also developer. So this is a very good replicating of the physical world. So this is also one important factor that contributed to the success of Metaverse platform. And typical example of how UGC contributed to the success of a Metaverse platform is a Roblox. Roblox, in terms of the amount of the users, we think probably is the most successful Metaverse platform, because there are close to 100 million users in this platform. So I'm not sure how many of you know the amount of users of Horizon. It's said it's around 200, between 200 and 300,000 users in the Horizon. So there is a big gap. One reason why Roblox is very successful, because Roblox opened an technology engine, and it make it very easier for the users to develop their own games by using the tools embedded in their platform. And a lot of users of Roblox is actually young people, so they like to create. And this model actually generates more attraction to this platform. And compare among all of those Metaverse platforms, we can see in China, the Xirang platform is something like the Horizon World and something like the a little bit like the Roblox, but not very much. So Xirang is also putting a lot of emphasis on the experiences. So if you get a chance to access to the Xirang platform, you will see the picture, the video, the movement, the virtual house is very like in a high resolution model. And in Xirang platform, different company can open their booths. Those companies, including technology companies like NVIDIA, also including some financial institutions like the China Bank, and also including some consumer-oriented companies like some automotive companies. So they're actually trying to build a B2B2C business models. However, There are also no UGC capabilities, and there are no DID, there is no economic system in Xi'an platform. So by this definition, it's also not very ideal that in terms of how many ending users and how frequently the users will come to this platform. And compared with Horizon and Xi'an, we can see other 5 platforms in this picture to different extents. They all use the UGC, and they all use the economic system, and they all use the DID. DID means whether or not you own a unique ID system, so that even though you use the same ID, you can get access to different platforms. For example, if you own an ID in decentralized, actually you can use the same ID to access the sandbox and to access the OpenSea. Because this DID is actually based on a Web3 model, Web3 technology. However, in China, because the Web3 model is not widely accepted or is not widely understood so far, so there is no DID system. So that means in Xi'an platform, you have your own ID, but this ID is only applicable in Xi'an. It's very like the traditional internet platform. Each platform has their own ID systems. So this is another factor. And the user base, the factor of user base means whether or not this platform supporting enterprises users and individual users. Because in the real world, we have different types of users, different types of organizations, small enterprises, big enterprises, NGO organizations, and individuals. So if we want to create a virtual world to make it successful, it's better that the platform can provide different options for different types of users, including both enterprises users and individual users. So that's we think the factors that contribute to the success of platform. And the stepping is another example. That stepping is a very typical Web3 model and emphasizes a lot of financial features. But because their contents are not that very attractive, so Steppen had ever attracted a lot of users, and those earlier users actually made a lot of money by their financial products and sell to the new users. But their user base quickly dropped when their economic system broken down. So this is the way we look at the Metaverse platform. So in China, in addition to those 4 bigger platform developers, those internet companies, the individual metaverse solution providers is actually a lot. So even though the metaverse, the idea is still in the early stage, but the competition is very fierce in China. For example, it's said there already have 10,000 companies are developing virtual human and provide a virtual human solution to enterprises. And also there are a lot of small or startup companies is doing social activities in the metaverse format. And in China, in terms of the technology, there are mainly 3 types of technology. Unreal and Unity account for a big amount of a market. And WebGL is another type of technology. And the differences between those 3 technologies lie in that whether or not that's high resolution, whether or not the amount of user per unit is higher or lower. The higher the resolution, the higher the resource, the cost, and the lower the amount of user per unit. So that's why if you want to provide a high resolution experiences to end users, you can use UE. However, it's very unlikely you can hold a big amount of end users at the same time in the same space if you use a UE technology. So that's a different features of those technologies. Over the past year, the first 2 questions raised by the clients we made a survey is that first, whether or not Metaverse can bring real value to our business. Because as some of you realized, the Metaverse developers are not that fast as people expected at the very beginning. And the second question is that where to start with? Where is the breaking through point to make the first investment into a Metaverse? And some applications in China, including the tourism, education, automobile, retail, and also the Communist Party also applied Metaverse to build their virtual meeting room. So there's actually quite a few applications. And in terms of frequency, we see that most of the areas that apply to Metaverse is marketing. And then is the services, like to launch a Metaverse product in a virtual room and launch an NFT or make a virtual human being to make it as a brand to promote their brand. So that's several areas that get applied of Metaverse more frequently. However, if we look at the picture, there are different types of Metaverse modules from the virtual contents, virtual space, human being, NFT, Metaverse games, and UGC, and even some Web3 models. However, companies are not fully leverage all of those Metaverse models. So that's one reason that the results are not very ideal so far. So we summarize the 4 points that why Metaverse platforms are not very successful. In addition to those big Metaverse platforms developed by those internet companies, we also analyze the reason why some enterprises self-built Metaverse platforms are not very successful. One is that the company focuses more on 3 dimensions format, but ignore to tell a brand story. And second, they are not fully leverage all Metaverse platform modules. And the third reason is that they are not building end-to-end solutions to link production, marketing, sales, and services so that the conversion rate is low. And the last part is that the failed to connect their Metaverse platform with the digital transformation platform very smoothly. So based on this analysis, we think the next stage, the breaking through point for the company in China is to build a more emotional, more intelligent, more valuable, and more practical Metaverse platform by combining their branding story with their Metaverse space, and by combining Metaverse XR with AI to build a more intelligent platform, and also by combining Metaverse technology with a Web3 based model to bring more value to their end users and to build a more practical Metaverse platform by combining their Metaverse platform with their traditional existing digital transformation. Yeah, I think that's my part of the story. Yeah, thank you, Zhongming. Thank you, Natalie. My part is end.